Welcome to the Modern Sports Show, home of your college athlete, where we are player-led and fill in the blank, player-focused, guys. I'm your host, Corey, today. And if this is your first time tapping in, go ahead and hit that follow button, subscribe, or share wherever you're watching or listening. It helps us grow the show and keep these conversations going. So I appreciate if you went ahead and did that for me. Today's episode, we're starting with Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. After that, we'll jump straight into some of the key story elements around college football. Fall camp just got started, so we're excited about that. And today we're going to step away from the SEC, shine a little light on the Big Ten with Oregon and USC. So let's just jump straight into it, okay? For starters, I want to wish Coach Prime and congratulate him on a successful surgery. I know he came out this past week delivering the news that he had bladder cancer, but they were able to remove the tumor. I think they actually took out his whole bladder. So I just wish him continued success or continued health, rather, and strength as the Buffs head into this college football season of 2025. I'm sure, that is going to have a very long-lasting effect and impact on the team over the course of the season as they go through the year, and just what that'll mean from a intangible standpoint, how they'll be able to just rally around that, their head coach fighting through some adversity, because we know Coach Prime has had other health issues, and so just adding this onto that list, he continues to show up day in and day out. And I'll say because I don't want to sit here and be like I'm a Colorado Buffs fan. In all honesty, I have been very critical of the Colorado Buffs the past few seasons, and just kind of some of the things that I'm seeing from the program. Nonetheless, that does not change how I feel about Coach Dion or Coach Prime as a coach and as a man, because I think he's doing some very important things in the young men's lives that he's coaching. And so I like to see that as a young black man, and having been in those Division I programs and understanding the dynamics between player and coach. So to see someone like Coach Prime that's doing it at that level, I think that's an amazing thing. And then you add on the personal adversity that he's faced from a health standpoint, like I'm rooting for his long-term success, not just in coaching, but in life in general. So I love to see that. And with that being said, I thought this was the perfect opportunity, right, ahead of what Coach Prime is dealing with right now, and kind of bouncing back from that, to really dive into what they're doing or what they could do and be from a team standpoint this year. And so just taking a look at some of these games that they have coming up this season. They have Georgia Tech, and we talked about this on the last episode, but they have Georgia Tech to start the season at Folsom. That's in Boulder, Colorado. And then as I skim through their schedule, in all honesty, right, I think it's no secret for anybody that pays attention to college football that the Big 12 is not exactly the strongest conference, right? It's one of the weaker conferences. And so I think they'll play, at this point in the schedule, they'll play 4 ranked teams over the course of the year. Those are teams that are obviously beating the Big 12. That's not much. And so, and of those 4 teams that are ranked, only one is in the top 10, BYU being at 10. And so they have BYU September 27th. That's a highlight matchup, something that I wanted to note. Georgia Tech, like we mentioned at the beginning of the season. Then they go on to play Utah on October the 25th. That's at Utah. Now, I think that game is it's giving me, it might be a toss-up. And I just say that because with Coach Whittingham at Utah, this could potentially be his last season. And so that Utah team is going to be playing for something the same way Colorado is. Coach, and just that sentimental value that the coach holds to the players. So that game could be a good game. However, it's going to be a road test for Colorado. Utah obviously coming off kind of like an uncharacteristic season. I know they lost one of their top running backs last year, and so they went without him. And they also didn't have their quarterback. And what's my guy named? Cam. can't think his last name, Cam, no, that starting quarterback. So it's really just going to be one of those toss-up games for me with Colorado and Utah, but I also see Arizona State and Kansas State. This Big 12 schedule, and it's really how it's been the last 2 seasons for me, especially how it was last year, like I mentioned on the last episode, how we had that 6-way, 4-way, 5-way tie with a few teams in a top-heavy conference in the Big 12. And so I don't really see, I don't really foresee anything right now. I guess for me as an analyst in this role, being a one-man show, right? Because if I had a couple other people helping me run the program, of course we could do a little bit more research. But just me, myself, and kind of the research I am able to do, I think this Big 12 is kind of wide open. We'll see it play out over the course of the season and kind of who I like as a favorite to win as we kind of, at least, I'm not going to say get all the way through the season because I don't think that would be fair to the predictors. But I'll say at least let's get through the first month and I'll kind of have a better gauge of what I see the Big 12 coming. Okay. And then, I think just the leadership that Coach Prime is going to bring, the matchups that the season will bring, is going to be competitive, but we'll just see what these Big 12 teams are able to do down the stretch. Now, heading into how I foresee the Big 10 going, particularly Oregon and USC. So, with the Oregon Ducks, I think, or just some of the fall camp storylines right now, Dante Moore is entering his first season as a starter after Dylan Gabriel has gone to the NFL. Obviously, he's with the Cleveland Browns right now. So I think he's the projected starter. I'm not quite sure that there is going to be a quarterback battle. I think he's pretty cemented in that position. From a running back standpoint, or from a skill position standpoint, in the running back room, we have Noah Whittington. Okay, Noah Whittington. This is a kid I really enjoyed watching him play last year. I liked his game because he was more of a utility back, more of like a third down back, because he had Jordan James sharing carries with him. And so for Noah, this year is kind of going to be like his coming out party where he's getting the bulk of the carries, I assume. And the only reason I say that is because they also bring in Makhi Hughes coming out of Tulane. And Makhi, he was a 1,400-yard rusher last season, okay? Had 15 rushing touchdowns, was averaging 5.3 yards a carry. And so Tulane obviously relied on him heavily last season, as well as the quarterback at Tulane. They kind of leaned into their run game, John Sumrall down there in New Orleans. And so my predictions from the running back standpoint is a 2-back system, actually similar to what we saw with Jordan James and Noah Whittington last year. This season only is going to be Noah Whittington and Makhi Hughes. So I like it. I think just from the things he showed me last year, I really feel like he can be a guy who can do a lot of special things this season. And I'm saying, like, being a postseason award finalist in a few categories. I think he's a special runner. I thought where Jordan James was a lot of power, not to say he didn't have some speed too. I feel like Noah Whittington was a mixture of different things. He had the power, he had the speed. We saw him obviously show out in that Penn State game last year. And so Penn State, that is, in the postseason. So I like Noah this season. I think he's going to come in and be that guy. But I feel like him and Makhi Hughes, they're just really going to feed off each other. We've been seeing a lot of 2-back tandems in football. I spoke about it last year with Nicholas Singleton and then Katron Allen at Penn State. And then in the NFL, you had drawing some blanks right now. You had like what's my guy, Bajan Robinson, and the other cat with the Atlanta Falcons. And then we had up in Detroit, I think we had why am I drawing so many blanks right now? My Alabama guy, as well as the other one in Seattle. You just had a lot of running back couples. And then as soon as I cut the camera off and I'm recording it or editing this this episode, all the names is just gonna start flowing to me. But you all get the point. A lot of duos in football last season, so I think Noah and Makhi is definitely gonna be that this year. Now in that wide receiver room for Oregon, okay, I like I liked Evan Stewart Jr., but he's obviously out for the season, tearing his patella in the off season. So I think the receiver room, right? You obviously bring back a few guys, some juniors. I think they bring back a true sophomore this year. I think that they are going to have to fill the void for Evan Stewart this year. I like Oregon. I like their schedule. Their schedule isn't too tough. Okay, to start the year off, they have Montana State, Oklahoma State on September the 6th. They're at Northwestern on September the 13th, at Oregon State on September the 20th. And then their first true test, in my opinion, I think they'll skate through those first 4 games of the year. Their first true test is going to come at Penn State on September the 27th. But then they'll have a bye on October the 4th. And I feel like, just looking at the rest of their schedule, their next test might not come until USC, and that's at home on November the 22nd. So Oregon, I really feel like whether they go to the Big Ten championship or not, just depending on the people they beat or maybe even a couple of games that they lose, I think that they're going to have a solid spot in the college football playoff. But then on top of that, it really poses the question because of how they got done, right? Having a first round bye, but then playing Ohio State, or excuse me, having the first round bye, playing Penn State in the second round, and then in the third round getting Ohio State, okay, in the Rose Bowl. It really questions, and this is a lot of reporters and analysts have been speaking about this offseason. It questions whether it's incentive enough to go and win your conference championship if the luck of the draw is that you got to play two top 10, or obviously top 10, but just teams like Penn State, Ohio State in the first couple of rounds of you playing, then you add a bye on top of that. So that brings into question seeding and strength of schedule and all these other different factors that we're not going to get into today. But I'm just saying, Oregon's schedule, and I'm sure Dan Lannon is going to, we're going to go out and win games. All right, that's just the name of the game. However, maybe from resting, do we rest players this game? And if you lose, you lose, and that's okay. If you win with the players you got, that's fine too. But we want to make sure we have all our guys ready to go in the biggest games of the season that matter. That is what I'm referring to. And like I said, Dan Lannon, I'm sure they're going to come ready to play each week. But it's just something to think about, right? Now, moving on with the USC Trojans fall camp storylines. As far as the quarterback situation going on there, I don't want to butcher his name, but I'm going to try to pronounce it. Jaden Maeva. He's taken over as a starter this season. But last year he had some games where he started also where Miller Moss was benched. Okay, Miller Moss obviously starting quarterback. I think Miller Moss started the year off pretty strong with USC. Then, right, things got kind of rough. I think they went on a 4 or 5 game losing streak in the middle of the year. And then he was benched. And Jaden Maeva comes in, and he brings his leadership and a strong arm to fill that role late last season. And then we have Miller Moss transfer out to Louisville. So I want to say that as far as a projected starter, Jaden Maeva is pretty much going to be the guy for USC going into the year. Now, I want to make note of some notable offensive changes, and that is Zachariah Branch transferring out to Georgia. That took place, I want to say, back in December or January of this offseason. Now, me personally, I say just looking at the stats, not necessarily really even taking into account scheme and the roster necessarily. I do feel like Zachariah Branch, from a receiving point, wasn't really a big loss for USC. I think for just having a playmaker on your roster, that's really where USC takes a bulk of the impact in losing him to Georgia. And so I'm actually kind of interested to see what he's going to do this year at Georgia. I think he has a successful season. I think he adds to some playmaking ability that Georgia needs now. But offensively, USC losing him doesn't really hurt offensively. I think another key focus this offseason was that defense for USC. They ranked 77th nationally in defense last season, allowing 380 yards a game. And they gave up too much in the air. They gave up too much on the ground. They gave it way too many touchdowns up. I think they gave up 41-ish touchdowns last season. And so, like, for as good and as strategical and creative as Lincoln Riley's offenses can be, it's really just finding that guy defensively for them to come and make a difference schematically. And I know we have, I believe, Coach Rob Ryan at USC. He brought him in last year, kind of just getting his feet wet. This year, maybe we come and we see a different beast on that defense schematically. And so, ready to see how that works and looks. Now, I'll say for USC, their key matchups were, or coming into the season, their key matchups are going to be at Illinois. They play Illinois on September 27th. Illinois, obviously, last year kind of shook the college football world up and were right there really outside the college football playoff. They play number 7 Notre Dame. That's at Notre Dame. That's on October the 18th. Then Nebraska, they have Nebraska at Nebraska on November the 1st. So a majority of their game, really all of their key matchups are going to be on the road. And then they're at Oregon on November the 22nd. So USC, I won't necessarily say it's the most toughest schedule, but I will say it's a schedule that it's just not a cupcake schedule. They are going to have some games on the road, particularly in those environments where you need to win, that are really going to make or break their season. I don't know for Lincoln Riley and for what he's done at USC, if let's just say they lose all their games on the road, okay, that puts them at 8-4. I don't know if that's enough for him to keep his job. Granted, I don't know who else you go and get in the coaching pool. I was thinking about this, watching some highlights and some tape from a few seasons ago on Alabama and Florida State 2017 matchup, season opener. Jimbo Fisher, he needs a job. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know what program. There are some programs who need a coach or are going to need a coach after next season. And I think Jimbo Fisher is a name that, and I think Jimbo Fisher is actually joining the ACC network this year. So that might be his precipice to getting back into the game, getting back around football, right? Who knows? Maybe he's coaching in the next couple of years. So now, with USC, that's pretty much it on them. I think they have a decent year. I feel like 6-6 is kind of like their floor, and maybe a 10-2 is like their ceiling. But again, it's always about how you get out to a start. And they have 4 games before they got to really get into the meat of their schedule. And so Oregon and USC, they both set up very nicely. Don't really have too many hard games in the first month of the season. So they can really get off to a hot start. And that might really help them out and open ways to them getting, some games won underneath their belt. So that's that on that. And I really, really, like I said on the last schedule, I'm going to start giving you guys the shout out and the just do you deserve. So please, please, please drop whatever you think in the comments. Give us some encouragement so I can throw something back to you in your day-to-day. And we just really want to appreciate all the supporters we have. So on this episode, right, on our fan engagement shout out, we're giving a shout out to @CBR_9295 for the comment they left a comment on the video where we went up to the University of Arkansas and sat down with Mr. Shaq McRoy, who is heading into his sophomore season with, or his redshirt freshman season, should I say, with the University of Arkansas. So he said, "Thanks and keep up the great work. Would love to see you in the Little Apple, also known as Manhattan, Kansas, for K-State." And we appreciate that. Maybe next off season, because I know this we're about to get into the meat of this season. I know it would be hard to get up there this season, but in the off season, I'm a network, reach out to some people I know and see if we can get up there to Manhattan. I actually have not been up there in quite some time. I was a military brat, so my father was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and I went to school in Junction City, Kansas at CBR 9295. So when you left the comment the other night, I was thinking about some of my guys. Junction City and Manhattan is a real big rivalry up there. So I appreciate all the support. We want to keep this community growing. Drop yours in the comments so I can shout you out on the next episode or respond to you down there in the comments. My question for you before we get out of here today is, which college football team's fall camp storylines are you most excited about? And I want you to drop your picks on social and let me know why. Go follow. That's a good segue to go follow all our social medias. We're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. So please stop by there, drop a follow so we can stay engaging with you all and interacting. And lastly, that's a wrap for this episode of the Modest Sports Show, the home of your college athlete, where we are player-led and player-focused. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to hit that follow, subscribe, or share button wherever you're watching or listening. It really helps us grow and bring more quality content. I'm your host, Corey, and I'll catch you next time for more college football insights and stories that matter. Until then, stay humble, keep grinding, and keep supporting your college athletes. See you guys next time.